Look at Allen. He's in there. He's in deep. He's got Smith. He's got Smith. Look at this. Wow, what a phenomenal performance we're seeing. A junior in high school against the #1 rated wrestler in the world, or in these United States at least. We're in the fifth dimension, folks. Look at that kid strutting like a peacock.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wrestling with Issues podcast. I'm your host, Tim Gaither. Haven't done one of these in a while, but I'm excited to have Alan Freed be the first one back in a while. I've known of Alan for a long, long time, since I was a little kid. He was a 3-time Ohio State champion. He was a 4-time junior national champion. He was an SBR world champion. He was a 3-time NCAA finalist, an NCAA champion. He pinned Tom Brands in the first period at the Midlands. He is always in the conversation as maybe the best high school wrestler to ever do it, and I'm very excited to talk to him. So without any further ado, let's bring him in. What's up, dude?
How are you doing? Thanks for the nice introduction.
Yeah, man. I wanted to make sure I gave you justice. I mean, like I said, I've met a fair amount of famous people in my life, and I get more nervous talking to wrestlers that I looked up to than you should have seen me when I interviewed Eric Aiken, who was kind of my idol growing up. I was like, it turns me into a little kid for a minute until I get over like who I'm talking to, you know. When you texted me back, when I emailed you and you texted me back, I went out and told my wife, I was like, I just got a text message from Alan Freed. This guy pinned Tom Brands in the first period. You know how cool this is for me? So it's weird. I met Cary Kolat once at the U.S. Open, and my kid's middle name is Kolat, and my leg was shaking, and I was telling myself, like, what is wrong with you, dude? You're not going to wrestle him. You're just saying hello. But anyway, it's an honor to have you. And how are you today? What are you up to these days?
I'll tell you what I'm up to. I'll address what you said. I was trying not to make any noise while you were talking because, you know, we want to give each other you know, we don't want to step on each other. But I love the name of the podcast. I didn't know it was called Wrestling with Issues. You got the perfect guy on here right now.
Well, I tell you what, I've been struggling with what to call it.
That's a good one.
I just called it wrestling. It's okay, man. Don't worry about that. It'll happen every now and again. It's just how people talk. But I was struggling with the name. I was going to call it Wrestling with God. I thought I was shooting baskets, and I was like, Wrestling with God, that's great. And then I looked it up, and there's like 10 of those. And then I was like, you know what? I part of this is I want to talk about like my issues and things I deal with on a daily basis. And I know just about every wrestler I've ever known has some too. So I was like, Wrestling with Issues. That's a pretty good name, because I was just calling it Wrestling Wednesday, which is pretty stupid. So yeah, man, I'm excited to have you. I wanted to start this out by asking you about, I grew up in Kansas. Go ahead.
I wanted the other thing that you were saying when you know you get more nervous for meeting the wrestlers you looked up to, and I'm the same way.
Really?
Yeah, I'm the same way. Sometimes I feel like maybe too much of a fanboy, but I mean the further I get away from the sport and being able to do it, the bigger the imprint that the guys that do it now have on me. And like I was at the U.S. Open a couple weekends ago with some of our wrestlers in the age groups, and man, it was like I was telling people, I mean, if you want like a backstage pass to the equal backstage pass to the Slayer, Led Zeppelin, Beatles, Guns N' Roses tour, then you gotta go. Then you sign your kid up for the U.S. Open in Las Vegas, and you get to see everything about how the sausage is really made, what it takes to make one of these world teams. They're warming up with you. They're just going through the whole process, and never do you get access to the superstars like that that are presently the superstars in anything, and that you have that opportunity in wrestling. If you just pay the admission fee and get a USA card, you want to see the backstage of the greatest wrestlers on earth, and historically some of them as well. That was it. It was one of the greatest three days weekend of my life. After, I don't think I've been to the US Open since I competed in it, which was 2000. I've been to
Okay.
like the World Championships in Vegas and watched a lot on TV, but actually just seeing the guys, all the names in person, they don't look the same on TV as they do in person. They're way more impressive in person.
Yeah, I went to the Vegas Worlds myself. She was my girlfriend at the time. She's my wife now, and people don't realize, like, you pat these guys on the shoulder. I'm sure you're the same way. You touch these guys, and it's a different kind of hard. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like, they are just, even John Smith, who's always wearing like baggy clothes, and he doesn't look like, even today, he's got to be 60. Even now, when you hit that guy, you're like, this guy is just like a brick wall still. It's just a different. I remember, I can't remember his name now. He's a world silver medalist, but I saw him at Worlds, and I think he went like 0-2. He didn't do very well, but I remember patting him on the shoulder and just being like, man, these guys are just made out of freaking bricks.
I totally agree. Solid concrete skin.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
And I was pointing some of them out to my wife, these 105 pounders, because back in the day they had those little 105 pounders, and I was like, you see that guy over there? He looks like an Ewok. He would rip your face off. They got these mangled ears, and they're like 5 feet tall, and yeah, it's a shame they took the sport away from the smallest guys and the biggest guys.
oh, it really is. Like, I always make sure to mention when that comes up. Like, I remember Eric Alberison, Cejudo's MMA kind of manager coach, and him coming up and being so good so young. I think we wrestled in the Sunkist Open finals. He was a couple years younger than me, and I was pretty young to be in that finals. That was like, an open senior level tournament, and they took his weight class away, and he was a natural 105. He tries not to let it bother him, but I let it bother me for him.
Yeah,
And I think he could have been like one of those 105 world champions, medalists. He was,
yeah,
so fast and just side to side and leaping across the mat and did everything. And
yeah,
it got stripped away because he
yeah.
just, what was it, go five? Then it was it 14 or was it 19? I think it was 14 and a half and 25, and then it became 19.
Yeah, that's what Eric Aiken cut down to for his international career, was 14 and a half. Um, and he wrestled 130 his senior year of high school, so I know he was cutting a lot of weight. And that was kind of the first thing I wanted to talk to you about, was the Kansas connection that we kind of have. One was Aiken that I'll ask you about in a second, but do you remember wrestling Justin Ware?
Oh yeah, for sure. Both times I wrestled him, I remember it very well.
Yeah, he was tough, huh?
Yeah, he came out there and like did a sidestep. Both times we wrestled and blasted me with a double leg. Took me down both times first, and both times when he hit the double leg, I got one of the worst stingers in my neck, and had to wrestle the whole match with the stinger. And I remember it very well. And he was a freshman, right? He was a freshman from Kansas, and 42 for Nebraska,
Nebraska. Yeah.
and he was coached by Mark Perry, and I just knew he was going to be ready to wrestle me because Mark Perry was such a good coach, and I obviously could tell Ware was a really good wrestler, and I don't remember what happened after that.
Well, he's an enigma, man. That guy, when I was a kid, Justin Ware, we had some good wrestlers, and there'd be 2 and 3 and 4-time state champs, kids state champs. So, and they were here, and Justin Ware was here, and he always was. He could just beat the crap out of everyone. He would tech fall and pin everyone, and he was just otherworldly. and he was a four-timer in high school, and then he had a redshirt year, and then his freshman year when he wrestled you twice, he was ranked sixth in the country, and the year you won it, and he lost two matches in a row. He went 0-2 at his first national tournament, but they were like really high-scoring matches, and then he just walked away from wrestling, and
Wasn't he?
like
Sorry.
sorry.
Wasn't he a really good baseball player as well?
I heard he was better at baseball than he was at wrestling, which was hard for me to believe.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
I mean,
And then no one ever heard of him again. He just kind of disappeared.
we got to get him on the podcast.
Dude, I've tried. I've reached out to him and I can't. He's like, he's just that guy. He's just like, won't talk about it. He's just, it's crazy to me. And I'll tell you this quick story about him. I was real nervous to even meet him as a kid, even though he was only about 2 years older than me, because he was already like an 8-time state champion or something. And I remember asking him about somebody he was getting ready to wrestle. And I'll never forget the confidence he had. He was like, I was like, are you wrestling Cody Rolfe in the finals? And he goes, yeah, I'm going to beat him in the finals. And he was just so matter of fact about it. Like, it's not even a question of what's going to happen. I'm going to beat him in the finals. And I remember thinking, like, that's a different kind of confidence. So yeah, I don't know what happened to him. Your guess is as good as mine. He's on that bracket of yours. I'd be curious to see who beat him and all that.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what happened to him at nationals. I was thinking, for sure I could have this guy in the finals.
Really?
Well, of course. I mean, he just blast doubled me, and I got another stinger. The match is on YouTube. It's on my channel. I got another stinger. He like did something on the bottom, and I tried to float over and do a head post, and my whole neck went this way, and my feet went that way, and then I had to like just totally ditch, like run off the mat because he was going to take me down, and I got out of bounds without a takedown, and I was just laying there and just thinking, my God, how bad is it? The neck? The neck was like, which brings up the neck, which was kind of probably like the thing that I just couldn't take anymore that got me out of wrestling, was those stingers
Really?
more than anything else.
Okay. Yeah. I watched that match last night and I know exactly what you're talking about with the stinger.
Yeah, like they show it over and in slow motion. I'm trying to call timeout while he's shooting on my legs and then just diving out of bounds.
Yeah.
So it was challenging.
Well, and then that brings me to Eric Aiken, who, we didn't have a ton of guys that went on and did well in Division I from Kansas. There's been a few guys, but he was one of the few who did. He was a 4-time All-American and a finalist. And the thing I loved about Eric was he could lose. I saw him lose a few times in freestyle, and he would get beat pretty bad sometimes. And that by the next year, he was doing the exact same thing to those people. He was pinning them and teching them and beating the shit out. It was just like, he was just that guy. He was just that guy.
Eric was always the person with the great attitude. Everybody on every team really liked Eric Aiken for good reason. He's like the perfect regular guy, just tough, gritty wrestler. And and he's like a friend to everybody. In fact, the year I went and trained at Iowa, like I was afraid to kind of go there because I didn't feel like I'd be invited. In the room there was Zadok at the time. Brands was coaching. Gable was retired but running the club, and I had just like lost my job at Northern Iowa when they got rid of Briggs, and then Manning brought in all his own people, and I was in Northern Iowa, and I was like, well, where am I going to go? And I had some buddies at Iowa, and they're like, well, we got to, we can get a room together, or you can stay here for a little while. And it's like I just sort of morphed into the Iowa program, and I was really afraid to do it, and I asked permission first, and Gable like said, oh, we'll give it a try, and because a couple of years before that, when I would train with McElravy, I'd lived in Indiana before that. We would train at a place that wasn't Iowa wrestling room, so it wasn't really wanted there. And so me and McElroy went to a high school and worked out. And so I didn't know. But I thought, well, Eric Aiken's like here. I think he was there the year I was there, but I know he had been there before, and he was just welcome everywhere. And then I over time I realized, well, everybody just likes Eric Aiken, so that's how it works. And some don't like you. So that's
Yeah,
how.
yeah,
And
he was cool, man.
he had competition in the Iowa room as well, but nobody had a problem with him being there, you know. And he was, yeah. One of the great things about Eric was like he could handle losing and come back and never get the smile off his face.
Huh.
And and he got, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, he lost to Zeke Jones. I think they went 2-1 for Zeke in 2000, and they had the third and final match for the Olympic team. And if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know. This is how I remember it. And Eric took Zeke to 3 matches and was one move away from being the Olympian that year.
I think he lost the trials to Sammy Henson and Lou Roselli.
It might be Roselli.
Yeah, but I know that he beat Zeke Jones at, I think it was a World Team Trials, or maybe in the Olympic trials towards the end of Zeke's career. But I'm sure they wrestled more than once too. So I'm sure you're right about some time that they wrestled.
I should have looked it up, but I remember. And another thing, when it comes, Eric is like a pioneer of one particular technique that is really popular now, that everybody kind of thought didn't work on good people, didn't work on good wrestlers, and then he made it work on good wrestlers. It was, I think, his best takedown. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The slide by?
You bet. Yeah. Yeah. And now there's all forms of slide bys, and Jack's Forest with this one. And, you know, people use that as a regular move, on good people.
Yeah.
A lot of,
You know,
are
sorry, go ahead. I keep
a
interrupting
lot.
you.
No, it's a lot of moves now, though, have come out of the box that they don't work on good people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he taught me that slide by the summer before my senior year of high school, and somewhere along the way I quit doing it. And then after the season was over, I was like, "Dude, you just quit doing that awesome move that was work." Because I remember the beginning of the season, my buddy was like, "Where'd you get all this new shit?" And it was like, it's just the slide by there. Eric Aiken taught me, and then I quit doing it. So, I mean, I still had a pretty good senior season, but yeah, I hadn't thought about that particular thing in a long time, but yeah, I knew what movie you were talking about when you brought it up.
I couldn't. I was out. He would swing way out to the side, and pop that elbow by. That's why I think it worked, because he really like went with wide, and I never could get that one, but I got this one a couple of times where you over tie and then grab the elbow and throw him that way. I got, not to get a takedown, but if I could get the guy going this way and have that elbow, then I could grab the elbow with this hand and kind of do a knee pick or double leg or whatever was there. But this wasn't a bad setup.
Yeah.
But I didn't do it on the best wrestlers. I just, it was like something that worked once in a while that didn't really ever pop out in an important time or anything.
Wasn't a knee pick how you pinned Tom Brands at the Midlands?
Yeah, from an underhook over here, like Hidley is like, that's his move.
Okay.
Trent Hidley and some other people. But I think now, like, maybe I should have just for the career, like, maybe I just should have started throwing right side underhooks and looking for whatever opened up, and forget. And I was so like addicted to developing a setup to an out to a sweep single, and that wasn't really working all the time. And but I never got out of that mindset. Like, should I just throw an underhook as hard as I can and see what happens? Because it worked on Tom Brands. Why didn't my mind say do it every second? And like
Yeah.
Lincoln McElravy, if you watch some of his matches, he was doing that all the time. He was throwing that underhook. That was a lot of how he got people exhausted. You know, he'd throw right side underhook, and then he might boot scoot to the left.
What kind of guy? I'm getting off track of what I wanted to ask you, but you bring up these names and it makes me want to ask you, what kind of guy is Lincoln McElravy?
Oh, he's a very quiet, very smart, very nice, like absolute gentleman person. You know, he's kind of like Cale Sanderson.
Okay.
You know, if he was a coach, he probably would have been the coach that was quiet. You know, Cale's like the first like championship coach that's really quiet, so to speak, in the corner. Like, I love it too because sometimes I'm not feeling like the wildest coach in the corner, and it's finally getting the message through to parents and kids of the younger ages that in all actuality the coaching is done in the room. If I'm not acting like a psycho in the chair, it's not because I don't care. It's because the coaching is done in the room. Go ahead and look at Cale Sanderson and most of his staff too. They're not freaking out all the time, and you know it takes a little pressure off coaches because everybody wants their coach, you know, to do
Yeah.
the most excited moment that Gable ever had all day long.
Well, it's almost like stand-up comedy. Like sometimes before I'm going out there, I'm trying to remember like some joke or whatever, and then I have to tell myself, like, dude, if you don't know it by now, you're not gonna know it. You've got to go out there and just do it. You're not gonna remember it now. And it's the same thing with wrestling. I feel like, people are always trying to coach in the corner. I mean, I get it. You have to coach, but yeah, if they don't know it by now, they're probably not gonna get it. I wanted
I
to go all the way back to the
I
beginning and ask you. Sorry,
I'm
go
in,
ahead.
so I'm kind of interested in you, kind of like you as well, because you're a stand-up comedian and you used to be a wrestler, and like I really respect like stand-up comedians that type of performance. Me and one of my friends would go to some of the shows, the open mics, and he got up there a few times and he was pretty good, and I didn't really have he had like did a made a set and everything for 5 minutes, and I never even made a set. But it wasn't because I was just there for moral support. I wanted to do it, but I didn't have the nerve, you know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I tell people all the time that wrestling kind of prepared me for stand up in a weird way because I was that kid up until high school. I got so nervous I would throw up the first week of school. And it's same thing with wrestling. When I was first starting out, I mean, after my first year, I didn't throw up before tournaments, but when I was a kid, I did, and I would still get super nervous. And getting ready for comedy is very similar to getting ready for wrestling. Like I have to be by myself and take some breaths and pace back and forth. And a lot of times people come up and try to talk to me beforehand, and in my head, I'm like, "Can you just get away from me, please?" Like I'm not ready to talk. Sometimes I can barely talk until I get out there, and then it all just kind of goes away. Sometimes it'll stay for a minute, but it
Well,
usually goes away.
do you know every word you're going to say in order?
Um, yes and no. I mean, when you have a good act, it allows you to go outside of that act. Um, but it's almost like I tell people having a good act is like having a weapon. Like you can always go back and use your weapon, whatever it is. Um, But my best sets are when I talk to the crowd and then I weave in material that sounds
Yeah,
like it's off the top of my head. Those are the
right.
best sets. But you have to have an act because if you if you're just reliant on crowd work and you go out there and try to only do crowd work, well sometimes it's not there. And there's nothing worse than watching a comic try to force crowd work that's not there. And it's also just one of those things. Sometimes the crowd sucks, and all you can do is push play in your head and get through it. And if you don't have an act, it's going to be a rough one for you. You know, so
The thing,
yes and no.
yeah, like when I make myself laugh telling myself a story, and that line comes in your head, that like, oh, this might be something funny if I was standing on stage, is then you, so you're trying to tell the story, and then you have these words in your head that you're supposed to get out, that made you laugh to yourself, and they're supposed to be perfectly timed and sound perfectly natural when I put it in intentionally, it, up on a stage. It just seems like the transition is like almost impossible. You know, if you're not in the flow state and just being funny in the moment, it'd be so hard to just tell the story and embellish it with things you've already thought of saying. And then
Yeah.
you can't, could you possibly rely on your, because you're so relaxed when you're by yourself, and then when you're up in front of stage, your mind is going to just be scrambled eggs.
Yeah, it definitely takes a while to get used to that. And the first time so you've been on stage, you've done open mics.
No, I've been on stage and done open mics with guitar and piano.
Okay.
So I've performed, you know, and the difference between performing like on stage in music and or comedy or acting, and I did, like, I was in the play when I was a little kid in school, but I was the main character, so I was on stage the whole time. So I was like kind of a little performer, before I was a wrestler.
Yeah.
And but the thing is, when they blew the whistle when I wrestled, and I was just as nervous as like you were saying, not to the point of puking. Maybe a couple times towards the end of my career, I might have puked before a match from nerves, when it was really, things were really getting heavy. But not to the point of puking, but unbelievably nervous before every match. Had to go psych myself up, had to go pray, had to be alone, had to just, you know, go through this whole process. And then when that whistle would blow, the nerves go in wrestling, you know. Once in a while, the nerves will pop up if it's later in the match and it's tight, and you might, maybe you got a little lead, or just you start thinking, but it's very rare. And and in contrast to performing in music or performing on stage and being a little actor, the nerves never went away. Every bar of music you can screw up, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, if unless you have confidence and you're just some super genius, or you worked harder than I did. But like I mean, there was like little flashes of not being unbelievably nervous, and I guess it's just called stage fright, and I've overcome it a bunch of times. But it's so bad that I don't even. I'm like, I'll just play by myself in the house where there's no setup and no nervousness.
Yeah, I can't remember which perler on my podcast, the one that does all the clinics and stuff now. I think they both do actually, but he said that nerves are like a call to action, so it's a good thing. And the times that I'm not a little bit nervous, it usually doesn't go very well for some reason. It's like you almost kind of need it, but I still hate the feeling. I mean, I just hate it. I get through it, and do all these. I take a lot of deep breaths and all that stuff. I mean, I've been doing it for a living now for 25 years, and I don't imagine, if it hasn't gone away by now, it's never going to. Um, and
Yeah.
yeah, so I get it, man, 100%.
I was just like, the main thing was like, the nerves don't go away when you're performing, for me at least. And I guess I was asking you, does it, are you ever up there just for like minutes and minutes, and you're like, this was awesome. This was like talking at the campfire, and no nerves. And you're like, wow, that was amazing.
Well, it almost always is after, and usually when they say my name, I've got this little thing. When they say my name under my breath, I'll go, "That's right, you bitches." And something about saying that kind of helps. It like flips a switch. It's almost like in that movie Over the Top where he turns his hat around.
Yeah. Shake and bake.
um, what is it?
Shake and bake.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it's kind of like that, but every now and again, it's like an ice bowl in my stomach and my chest, and I can feel it right about here, and it won't go away for like 15 minutes. That doesn't happen very often, um, but it's usually going well when that happens. It's usually fine, and eventually it just melts away, and then I start feel comfortable. But occasionally it does stick around, and that sucks. Because you can just, it's almost like you're on the verge of a panic attack for like, and you're in front of all these people and you're getting paid. You can't just bail, you
Yeah.
know. I mean, I guess you could, but it'd probably not be very good for your career. But yeah, it's interesting. It's
Yes.
interesting that I chose something like that for a living when I was the kid that I was, and still am in so many ways when it comes to, you know, like I told you about meeting Cary Kolat and my legs shaking. And I'm like, dude, you're not wrestling him. You're just
Yeah.
same thing with Gable and Aiken and or not Aiken. I've known Aiken my whole life, but I met Gable. I met John Smith for a second. I met Tom Brands. If I would have met you before we did this podcast, I would have been like a little kid. I would have been like Talon Freed, you know. But speaking of little kid, that's what I wanted to ask you about. Was what kind of little kid were you like before you even started wrestling?
Oh, I was a troublemaker. I got into a lot of trouble and a lot of fights, and as wrestling came into my life, that started reducing, and there was like a different version of me that was on the mat that started at 10 years old, and I was always really small, and got picked on a little bit more than a little bit, and I was just like I was just put like on that post on Facebook. I was saying like I had started wrestling, and when I started having success, it was still back in the days when like they kind of made fun of me for being a wrestler. So I was a little troublemaker. I was always fighting in school, and even in Sunday school, I had fights, and and wrestling came in there and redirected all of it, and I'm so thankful for it. But like I said, the name of your podcast is Wrestling with Issues, and there's definitely an element of that with me that I was, you know, motivated and excited about wrestling. Sometimes not from the best reasons of, uh, but for a little bit of compensation, looking for attention, that kind of thing. You know,
Yeah.
so
Did you have siblings?
yeah, I have one older brother, a couple 2.5 years older than me.
But he didn't wrestle.
He wrestled a little bit after I got started. He did it for a couple of years, maybe up till his sophomore year in high school at Cleveland Heights, and he's more in academics. He's a lawyer now, real successful lawyer in Cleveland, Ohio. Just opened his own firm like a year ago. Already has like 7 people working for him. So he's the careerist, and I'm the adventurist.
Were your parents strict?
No, no. My parents, they were. I was like a kind of a latchkey kid at the beginning. When we moved to the suburbs of Cleveland when I was 3, you know, my mom went and got a job, and well, I didn't go to school when I was 3, but 5, 6, 7, 8. We had a lady that lived across the street, a couple houses over here, in our little postage stamp size houses in the suburbs, and she was our cleaning lady. Not really a nanny because she didn't like live with us and she was kind of elderly, but she would be there when I get home from school, and then my mom would come home. She worked at the gas station, so the reins were loose. We had cable TV. We stay up all night trying to watch the nudie movies on cable TV, and that it was. They took me to see Amityville Horror and oh my God, what were the double feet? Amityville Horror and Dress to Kill, like when we were little kids, and they put us in all kinds of precarious situations with it for our young minds.
Can you point to like a time that you realized like you could be elite at this? Do you remember when that was?
Like that second spark, you think? I think the first spark is like knowing you can be like a top guy in your state, and then having your actions follow it up because the spark is so strong that you like can't not go for it and do extra work. I think that's like the first spark for like an achieved wrestler, that he's not going to be denied. And then the second one, I think, is like when you think you might be able to wrestle with, not beat and dominate, but wrestle with, anybody in the world at your weight class. And that was like, it was around 15 or 16, because I did enter the Olympic trials when I was 16. I went to the qualifier, and then the one that set the ladder for the final mini tournament, so to speak, or the Olympic trials. And I was in there. I was kind of like pushed by one of my older friends who wrestled, and I'm so thankful for him for doing that. I thought I really actually could wrestle with anybody in the world around 15, 16. And I was looking at I remember watching, even though we didn't get a chance to watch much. But you remember Joe McFarland?
I know the name, yeah.
Well, he wrestled at Michigan State. Then he was the head coach at Michigan for a long time, and he was
The Silver Fox.
he's a Silver Fox now. Yeah, I think.
Isn't that what they called him, the Silver Fox?
Yeah, he probably had gray hair by the time he retired.
Okay.
But he was second in the world in 1986, before John Smith came in the next year and started shooting low singles from 8 feet away, and Tech fouled him in like the U.S. Open finals. Some of my facts may be wrong, but I got to watch Joe McFarland wrestle. Maybe I went to the World Cup or something that was always in Toledo, Ohio,
Okay.
about an hour and a half. And I thought, in my heart of hearts, I was like, I think I can wrestle with him. And then, well, 86, he took a silver. 87, John came in. 88, John was the returning world champion, total superstar. And I didn't quite know if I could wrestle with him too. But
Okay.
I still went and, went with the instinct that, well, if I thought I could wrestle with Joe McFarland, maybe it'll just transfer over. And I wrestled with him, pretty good the first period, but he ended up blowing me out towards the end, maybe by like 11.
For me, that's when, obviously it's impressive that you wrestled John Smith at 16 in the Olympic trials and that you got like, I think it was 3 takedowns against him. But what impressed me above all of that was towards the end of the match when he got a little salty about something and you pushed him. And I remember thinking like, this kid has balls. Like, didn't you push him?
Yeah, I stood up and pushed him, but he kind of pushed me first. Like, the ref's over us. I got the point, but I was trying to finish a double, and he did a cartwheel over me. And he probably should have got the points, to be honest with you. Like, with the cartwheel. And then he rolled over and then and gave me a shove, and then I stood up and gave him a shove. So it was a retaliation, but I really wish the whole thing hadn't happened, because it was like putting a little monkey wrench in our relationship that we had as training partners while he was dominating the world and then becoming a coach. And I think that might have dinged us like from the beginning.
Really?
It was, but because he doesn't take that kind of stuff lightly. And I mean, we're still did a good job together and everything, but I thought that might have tainted the pool before we got to swim in it.
Yeah, but I mean, just the fact, I guess I'm speaking just from you're a high school kid, and yeah, he pushed you first, but the fact that you had the guts to push him back, that just told me right there, like, this guy had a special mentality, like, to where you're not going to be pushed around by anybody, even a guy like that, who is, in everyone's book, the best ever. And you're a kid. I wouldn't have freaking done that. He would have pushed me, and I would have been like, okay. You pushed him, and I thought that was awesome.
That's how I got in all those fights when I was before I started wrestling. Is like I I knew that was like a little out of bounds, and I'm like, okay, now we're going, out of bounds.
Yeah.
And like his reaction when I pushed him was pretty cool. He just sort of walked all slow and everything like that, and he had, he had a lot of, what do you call it, Matt charisma, you
Yeah.
know. So well, so that was how one of the ways I ended up in that competition was like really getting that second spark to think I could wrestle with anybody in the world at that young age. Just only after like 2 junior national titles, 1 state title, and a little bit of practice once in a while with a Cleveland State guy that might come to St. Ed's, and I just felt like I felt like I was all right, you know.
Yeah.
But I was more used to feeling like I wanted to dominate everybody, and going up in the age group, that definitely wasn't my feeling. I'm going to dominate everybody. I was of the mind that, hey, I could wrestle with these guys, and I might be able to do something. What the something I did was really was qualify for it, to go to the Topeka Nationals that set the ladder, because you had to qualify for it. So we were at like a regional in Ohio at Ohio State, and I was just there to make the junior national team. And then my buddy who was at Ohio State convinced me to go up and wrestle in the open division that morning, and just he just lathered me up. He's like, "You can do it, you can do it." And I was like, well, I guess it's my chance, if I'm going to somehow break. And I knew this in the historical records that David Carr, not Jimmy Carr, Nate Carr's older brother, made the world and Olympic team at like 16 or 17. It's hard to get all the records perfect back then, but he was the youngest one. I was like, maybe I can be the youngest one. And my friend comes along, he's like, why don't you move up? So I go get a physical at the arena, and they allow me to wrestle 18 and above, and I end up taking second. There was probably 25, 30 guys in the weight class, college guys and older guys, and I end up taking second to John Fisher, and I lost 2 matches, but I still took second, because like the guy that like I think Fisher might have pinned the guy that beat me.
Okay.
That were with the good points back then, and only top 2 were allowed to go to the Topeka Olympic Trials Center. Sets up the Olympic Trials, where Randy Lewis wrestled John Smith in the finals. You see those matches
Yeah.
on his comeback, and during the tournament, I was doing well. I was winning probably 5 or 6 matches, and the guy that I was with, the one that told me to go up, um, said there's actually a really good guy in your weight class, but I'm not telling you who he is. And I wrestled him, and it was Claire Anderson from Oklahoma State,
Okay.
and I didn't even know who he was when I wrestled him, and then I lost 9-8 in overtime, and then afterwards he told me that Claire was an NCAA champion.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God. And I don't know if I could have done that if he would have told me he was an NCAA champ for Oklahoma State, 4 or
Wow.
5. And and that was a big confidence boost, even though I lost the match. Then Fisher teched me in the finals 17-1. It was like just manhandled. That was the worst he ever beat me, our first time. And I ended up taking second, I think, because Fisher might have pinned Claire Anderson. And then it's like, do you go to the actual national Olympic trials qualifier? And my buddy convinced me to do that too. So that's how the John Smith match happened. And my draw was John Fisher first. How is that? So I lose to John Fisher in the regionals for first. First, I take second to him, and I get him first round at the nationals, and then I won a match, and then I wrestled John Smith, and that was the end of that story as far as I got, and got to watch, the how the sausage was made, right, from the like I was saying about the U.S. Open, and that led, and we didn't know. I didn't know, even though I was like on the national scene with and at St. Ed's and everything. But we didn't really know how to get on a world team at the time. Like, the junior worlds back when it was 18U, and then there was the cadet was 16U or 15, and the Espoir. And it was kind of a mystery, like, when do these guys qualify for these tournaments? Where, how do they pick the team? Because I remember at junior nationals, it was either Bart Chelsvig or Matt Demaray. It was one of those guys. Was like, the rumor around the tournament was he just came back from the world championships, and now he's a junior nationals trying to defend his title or get a title. And it was a bit of a mystery. Like, I know, remember Kolat is a cadet world champion, and like, where are these tournaments? We got amateur wrestling news and everything, but anyway, long story short, when I was at the in Topeka where I wrestled John, I think it might have even been Randy Lewis. He's like, you didn't qualify for Pensacola, which was where the Olympic trials was, but in Pensacola at the same time as the Olympic trials is the junior world team tournament. So if you can win that tournament, you can get on a junior world team, which was 18U at the time. And I learned about it at the tournament in Topeka, and then I went to the world qualifier, and I won that, and then that's how I ended up making my first age group world team.
Is that when
And
they call it Espoir?
it was Espoir was 20 and under, and then
Okay.
junior was 18 and under back then.
Okay.
So I made a junior world team uh, that year, and that was my first taste of international wrestling. So that's how that whole thing started, from the big spark to getting in the fray with the senior guys and wrestling John Smith, and then learning about the tournament for the 18U and entering that tournament, winning that tournament, and going to my first overseas trip with USA Wrestling and everything. And so that's how that ball started rolling.
Wow. That's awesome, dude. So you won 3 high school state titles. I watched your first one last night. I didn't get to see all of them, but I watched your first one that you won. I think it was 2-1.
Overtime.
And yeah, and it was a long match, and I noticed you didn't celebrate much. Like, even after your first state title, there was no, like, and I always admired people that would do that would just win and get their hand raised and walk to the corner. And I didn't win a ton of big matches to be celebrating, but I think I would have. I celebrated a little bit my senior year of high school when I won. But I like that when people could do that. Were you always that way?
Well, in that match, that to me still was the most exhausting match I've ever wrestled, and I actually did puke after that match.
Huh.
We went so hard. The guy I wrestled, I beat him the first week of qualifier by 6. Then he beat me the second week of the qualifier by 6, and then we wrestled in the finals. and it was, I think, 2-2 regulation, 2-1 overtime, and I won on him grabbing my singlet, and they caught it. As I got an escape, he's tried to pull my hip down on the mat with my singlet, and they caught it. So I was up 2-0, and then he got an escape in the final period, and we just went back and forth. And I was maybe too tired to celebrate, but they're never too tired to celebrate. And there were matches that I really did celebrate, like my first match I ever won, jumped up in the air and then kissed my mother on the side of the mat. And then when I won junior nationals first time, I celebrated. And I kind of liked other people that just didn't celebrate. And Kolat was like one of the wrestlers we were still already watching back then, and he would just win and walk off. And I just like modeled myself after the people that would win and walk off. And uh, but there was a little part of me that wanted to really enjoy celebration on the mat.
Yeah, I remember Brent Metcalf saying, "I never wanted anybody to think it was a big deal that I beat them."
Yeah, that was our same thinking too. And I don't know, I think I might have repressed a little bit of what it could been good celebration. Like, I have some young wrestlers that do like to celebrate, sometimes a little too much even, but I kind of like it. I
Yeah,
there's a balance there, but I like getting into your own wins for a moment. Just like, if you're up there on stage and you like just slam that. Oh, I'm sorry, and you just slam those chords perfectly. You feel like that. It's like, you know,
yeah,
give the
yeah.
audience a little bit something to remember you by. Not on purpose though. If it comes from you from inside, I I,
Right.
I don't repress it, I guess.
Yeah. Um, so after the high school career you had, I mean, you had so much success, 4 time junior national champ and 3 time Ohio State champ and um, damn near 4 timer. You could have gone pretty much anywhere. Why did you choose Oklahoma State?
Uh, I chose Oklahoma State they were Iowa had lost 4 times in a row: 87, 88, 89, 90. One of them is during my freshman year at Oklahoma State. But I definitely wanted to go to Iowa. I mean, I put it out on a television interview when I was 14 that I wanted to go to Iowa, local TV. And I definitely wanted to go to Iowa. We had one of the wrestlers that was a senior when I was a freshman went there. A guy the year before went there. Jimmy Heffernan went there. John Heffernan, uh, from St. Edwards, and Jimmy Heffernan was a national champion. And I loved Gable, and Gable was like the root of all my inspiration that kind of helped me go from being a being a little troublemaker and a crazy little kid that redirected that energy and the whole story of Gable was like the most important thing to me. And but when the time came, all right, not that I have to be on the winning team all the time, but 87, 88, then 89 and 90, Oklahoma State was one. It was 89 my senior year. 89, and they had John Smith, come through Oklahoma State winning in 87 and 88, and he was the greatest wrestler on earth already. And I really just wanted to train with John Smith. I was like, this guy's technique is on, from the future. And I was like, okay, I might be thinking about, I, what I said when I was 14 doesn't have to be true when I'm 18 or 17. And and then when it came to the wrestling part of it, um, I thought that Oklahoma State, each guy on their team, when I watched them, had their own style more so than the Iowa guys did, and that I thought that indicated like a little bit more personal coaching. You know how the like you think of the team at the time. I just remember seeing different style from each one of the guys on the team, their own style. And our school was kind of modeled after Iowa. My high school, St. Ed's, they won their first NCAA title the same year we won our first state title, and then they went 9 in a row, and we got 10 before we lost. So and we had brought guys to there, and even Gable came in and did a clinic for us with at our high school, and it was just like things were really heating up in Oklahoma State around my weight class with John Smith and other people, and there's Kendall Cross, of course, and Pat Smith was going there. He was in my class, and I'm like, I just decided Oklahoma State might be better for me, and that's how that decision happened. And I also knew that there were two sets of twin brothers at Iowa, the Steiners and the Brands, and somewhere in there, I was going to upset these little twin dynasties if I went there and was like trying to make the team, or maybe I wouldn't make the team, whatever. But I felt like they were pretty glued into the guys they already had, and Gable, being the person that respect, is one of those coaches that the Brands have already given him 2 years of hard work, and the Steiners, they're only famous for how hard they worked. Um, that he might have been a little more attached to them and might have not wanted a new guy. And then in Oklahoma State, the weight class looked a little bit less competitive, but turned out to be maybe like 1 degree from 100% less competitive, because I ended up in 2 years of wrestle-offs against a freshman who had taken third in the country to Brands and Zuniga
Who
during
was
my
that again?
Chris Owens,
Chris Owens.
who I just saw this weekend in Utah. I saw a bunch of people in Utah at the Western Regional. Steve Glassy, ran into him. You probably
I
know
don't
him.
know him. I
Oh,
don't know him.
he's like Southern California, SoCal Wrestling Club. Anyway, he just lives in Idaho. I live in Montana now, and yeah, we were always friends, but it's really tough in the wrestle off situation to be friends and be with the same people. A lot of drama there. A lot of backstage. A lot of backstage stuff doesn't get publicized about how tough college wrestling is. But if you're wrestling off somebody who's like a freshman, high placing All American, and you're a year behind him, you've got your work cut out for you.
Can you speak to any of that drama? Like what kind of stuff happened?
Well, it's not drama; it's just inner drama. Like you're not the guy. You may not be the guy. You may be looking at a transfer. If you lose this match, if you could even, the transfers weren't that granted that much back then, so to speak. You can't do it over and over again. And you know, I redshirted my freshman year for good reason. I qualified to go on, like, get two dual meets and two international tournaments at the open division, and I did that before the season started, and was like, well, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to Russia in January. I'm going to go to Cuba. I'm going to get some dual meets with these guys at the highest level, and I'm like, I'm going to really prepare to get ready for my freshman year next year. And then come back from Christmas break, and like all the freshmen I entered with, like, are now on varsity. There's a big change of everything, and Pat was pulled out a red shirt, and Robbie Haddon was another recruit, pulled out a red shirt, and then our 34 pounder went up to 42, and they pulled well, he didn't have a red shirt, but they put Chris Owens in the lineup, and he just started tearing people up,
Huh.
like one of the slickest wrestlers you ever saw. And he lost to Brands, but he took him down twice first. And I don't know if he wrestled Zuniga, but he wrestled Brands again, I think. And Brands, won. But Owens always took him down a couple of times. And then he was third in the country, and I'm like, oh my God, bro. We kind of thought Owens was going to be a 26-pounder. And then they put him in at 34, and he's just like third place freshman. And
Wow.
he's like becoming a phenom, and I got to wrestle him off the next year, all the way through the season. Didn't even know who was on the team till the weekend before Big Eights. That was our final wrestle off. And twice, maybe once or twice the next year too. And then the next 92, Owens went up to 42 and took second to Steiner. So he was in there third as a freshman, then didn't wrestle, then came in as a junior, and then took third to Steiner. And then we had our probation year after that, and he didn't get to wrestle. You know.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
he only so he never won a national title.
No, he got 2 shots at NCAA and took third and second.
Okay. So why did he only get 2 shots?
Well, I beat him out his sophomore year, and then his senior year was our probation year, and he didn't have a year to burn because he already redshirted.
So what kind of relationship did you have with Pat Smith? Were Pat Smith and John Smith pretty similar?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. Yes. Both super tough, and but a little bit different too. Wait, what was the question before Pat?
I just asked what kind of guy Pat Smith was.
Oh, he's just a great guy. He's pretty quiet, like John is. You know, you can tell John's a quiet person. So's Pat. Not quite as quiet, but just a common sense, you know, good friend, funny guy to hang around with, fun guy to hang around with. Kind of like spreads his confidence on you, you know, as a competitor. You know, really good for somebody to talk to before a big match. So yeah, Pat's a great guy.
How so? He just had like a calming effect on you?
Yep, he was, yes, yeah, on everybody around him. And then he would go out there and, you know, hop to it and get out there and just like, you know, get in on people before you know it and ride the heck out of them, and nobody could ride him at all. And yeah, so he got taken out of red shirt while I was in Russia over Christmas break, and then he lost his first match like a lot of people do when they get taken out of red shirt, and maybe went undefeated the rest of the season and was a national champion, true freshman. You know, 2 months later.
I thought my college coach, and he could be completely wrong, but I thought he told me that Pat Smith lost like his first 5 matches and then never lost again. Is that right or is that wrong?
I don't know about 5, but what's his record? His record, he's only has like probably 5 or 6 or 7 losses on his record, but he might have lost 3 his freshman year. He might have lost 1 his sophomore year. I know he had a tie with Charlie Ray Miller from Arizona State, who was an Oklahoma guy that he went way back with. But he wasn't just getting his butt kicked, or maybe he was. But I would hardly remember it because I just knew he was gonna like put it together at the end of the season, like
Yeah.
a Mark Branch did as a freshman 3 years after that. You know, he had a losing record going into NCAA and was an NCAA champ, and we all just knew that was so possible on any given day, not on a long shot, but that he could win the whole thing. We just knew it because he was doing really well against Pat in the room.
My brother and I met Pat Smith very briefly at NCAA's, and he was just the nicest person. Like, he invited my brother to some party that Oklahoma State was having, like within knowing him like 3 minutes.
Right.
My brother was just telling him how much he always looked up to him, and he was just like we'd known him our whole life. He was so nice.
No, he was a fun guy to have at a party too, and yeah, he could make a good time. You know, he was a leader.
Yeah.
And
Did you ever see him and John wrestle, and how did that go?
I don't remember watching him and John wrestle too much. You know, Pat was kind of big. John didn't wrestle with a lot of big guys.
Yeah.
You know, up to 68, 58, 58 that Pat was. I don't know that I remember watching them wrestle too much.
Okay.
You know, but there's got to be some memory in there of watching them. But I don't remember them wrestling too much. John was 36, Pat was 58, cutting from like 67, 69. He might have been a little big for John.
Okay.
Or if you ask John or Pat, maybe they'll say I wrestled him all the time. You didn't see it. I kicked his butt every day.
can can you point to one guy that you think was the toughest guy you ever wrestled?
Brands
Okay.
toughest, and John's on that level too of tough. Even though it's outshined by his amazing technique. He has the same toughness
Yeah.
as Brand. It's like solid. And then Brands is like the toughest, you know, one of the toughest people in the history of the world. You know, with what he's with his style and what he's done, and you know, just everything about him. You know, still hardline.
What what
Talks
was
and
it like? What was it like wrestling that guy? Like, what was your mentality going into those matches with Brands? Did you just know, like, I'm gonna get as tired as I can, and I don't know, was it nerve wracking?
it was yeah, very nerve wracking. I so I wrestled him twice. Uh, I beat him the first two, and then I lost to him in overtime at the All Star match. And man, you know, we weren't even supposed to go into overtime. That year in the dual meets, there was ties. Like we got shellacked by Iowa that year, 90-91. And it was the score was 35-2. We lost 9 matches, and then Randy Couture tied Travis Pfizer, so we each had 2 points. And then
Okay.
I wrestled Tom in the All Star match, and we were 4-4 tie, and then the ref asked us if we wanted to go overtime. Right on the and
what did you both have to give an answer?
yeah, he's like, you guys, you know, let's do this for fans. You know, we can have an overtime if you guys want to. And that was, you know, I beat him the 2 times before, once by a lot and once by just a couple points. And then I was ready to take the tie, to be honest with you. You know, wasn't really feeling the overtime, but I went. I could not say no in the moment, and then
Sure.
I got in on a single leg, and then he kicked out of his shoe, he kicked out of his sock. His sock and shoe are hanging out of my armpit,
Huh.
and I was finished that single leg. I had it all the way up here, and I was just gonna grab that other leg and and get the squeeze, and he kicked out of it, and we were trading takedowns, you know, in the match, basically like 2 each, I think. One him, me, then me, and then we got back to the center. He got his shoe on, and then 10, 15 seconds later, he goes bam, double leg, and just right to my butt. And so,
Hmm.
so, but going out to Russell Thomas, it's like anybody else. You just, you know, especially if you've beat him before, you know you can do it, and and you can see him wrestle against other people, and you know what to expect. You're not going to let him push you around or intimidate you if he tries starting to do that kind of stuff. And you just take it like every other match, you know. Just get out there and start making stuff happen, and make sure you're on your toes, and don't falter. And
You know what I you know what I hate about back then is they only showed like pieces of the NCAA tournament, like the finals. So
yeah, I
even
know.
now when you go back and try to find the matches, you can't find all of them. So I found when he won his third, so that would have been your sophomore year, I guess.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find the first one. How did the first match go? The one I saw was 5-3, I think. And how did the first one go?
The sophomore year was 6-2. He dominated me. I didn't even get a takedown in my sophomore year. You know, trained my butt off like I never had to, for that match and everything. And I was cutting a lot of weight, and I really wanted the rematch. But looking back on that, I sometimes think I could have talked to Owens, and I weighed more than Owens, who was cutting to 42. It's like maybe I could have jumped up to 42, and Owens could have wrestled him. I don't know if he would have agreed to that, but I was heavier than Owens. I was cutting from like 60 sometimes, and not 60 to 34. I mean 50, 50 something. But when I kind of lost the spot there. Oh, 6-2. I don't think I didn't score takedown. The first year, the thing that they didn't get on the Jeff Blatnick broadcast was we had like a 30 to 40-second scramble for the first takedown. I hit a sweep single over here on his left leg, and then he like kind of like grabbed a spladle, like reached over me and kind of looked for the spladle, but just like he did into the Olympics, his first score in the finals, where the Japanese guy was on his leg and he did not a
Okay.
crotch not a crotch lift, but just like a horsepower, not a spladle with locking both legs, but something to get two.
Yeah.
Or he probably got two. He did that to me. I was out of position. I had my head down a little bit when I was in there. And then it was just a scramble for the next 30, 40 seconds. And I just barely got around him. I went as fast as I possibly could to try to get this go behind. And he still was like slipping away from me. And I just had both of his shoes for literally a split second as this shoe was coming through and went all the way through like that. And I never paused him, but the ref gave me two. It was like,
Yeah.
and then he was out with that like point. He was out immediately, and he got an escape immediately, and I had like the big adreno dump and just got like,
Yeah, that sucks.
and my stomach started hurting, and I was like, all right, I'm up 2-1, and it was probably a minute into the match, and I was it was a tough match after that for me, but
Yeah.
I might have got in one more time, and he rode me out pretty good. He just kept jamming my knee right up into my butt cheek and running me out. Good strategy, and got a riding time point, and he just got me. He knows. He was great at winning. He was great at dominating, because once he started getting the motor going, he got meaner and meaner and had more and more energy. But he was also great. That's why he is great at winning close matches. And
Yeah.
I know Gable, could get that like fireball that Tom is to actually, use strategy too and blend it in with everything. So, that's why he's the Olympic champion.
So you lost, I think, 6 times in college, and all of them were to brands except for one guy. Who was the other person?
Dave Drogmuller.
Okay.
He from Nebraska. Dave Drogmuller. He beat me during my redshirt year. I don't know if I placed in that tournament or not, but it was the St. Louis Open, and Drugmuller beat me redshirt year, probably like 9-7, 9-6, 5, something like that. He was really good on top. And you know who else beat me that tournament? Chris Owens
Oh, okay.
beat me 12-6 and took me down 6 times.
Wow.
That's when I knew we had, Houston had a problem. as far as like just skating on the Oklahoma State varsity team, you know.
Yeah.
And so when Owens just lit me up, and I think he won the tournament, and it was Drugmuller. That loss is not on my record. That was my redshirt year. He beat me at the national duels. We were in the national duels, probably like the semifinals or quarterfinals, and he beat me, I think, 11-7. I'd made like that freshman mistake. Somebody does a claw, and you hammer down kind of like you do if somebody has a half.
Okay.
But that's the bait for a claw, and then they roll you over, and he got me with that. You know, the half is here and the claw is here, and it's a different but you feel the same when you're hammering down if you're, you know, a new freshman in college. Oh yeah, I'm just gonna, you know, elbow down, look away, and then it's, you know, on your back over there. He got me in that, and that was my first loss as a freshman. I think I had won 20 in a row as a freshman, and then he that was my first loss, and I remember the Iowa team was over there, and once I got put on my back, they were going crazy. I was like, I thought you guys liked me. I thought we boys, you know. And so
Yeah.
that was it. That was Dave Drugmiller. Then Brands beat me 3 more times that year. Once in the All-Star match, and then he beat me twice the next year. Once in the All-Star match, which is not supposed to be on your record,
Yeah.
but it's on
Yeah.
my. So I don't know. Do you think maybe I could file a lawsuit against the NCAA for lost earnings and wages for 30 years of having 2 extra losses on my record? How would has that affected my life?
Well, you're a lawyer. Find out from your brother. He's got a firm.
I just bounced it off him yesterday, and he laughed too. But
Yeah.
no,
So you really
but
only lost officially like 3 times.
4,
4. Okay.
4, yeah, 3 to Brands, 2 were in the All Star, 3, 2 finals is, 1 dual meet. Finals is,
The,
and dual meet at home in Carver. But he beat me in Oklahoma sophomore year. It wasn't Oklahoma State, but it was in Oklahoma City. So he got me on my home turf too.
well, when you pinned him at Midlands, that you got a little fired up then too. Like you didn't do a big celebration, but I'll never forget uh, the look on your face. Like you tried to stay kind of calm, and then you were just like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that was cool.
That they see that I had that feeling that time that I couldn't keep it in. It was just like, oh my God, you know. And
Yeah.
that was like probably my best 6 months of wrestling was from July when I was in the S-Ball Worlds and I won that, and then I came back and wrestled John Fisher, beat him for the first time in 5 matches over 3 years. We met in the finals of the Sunkist Open 3 years in a row. The first year was when I took second, and that's what got me all those USA Wrestling senior level trips. And then I wrestled him again the next year, and he beat me 10-5. And then I wrestled him after I'd won the S-Ball Worlds, and I beat him 14-4. I teched him. They gave me the double. Well, he hit the doubles, and I would hit the crotch lifts, and I finally got some threes instead of getting threed on my. And that's kind of where the score gap went. And I beat him, teched him, and then pinned Brands in the finals, and like that was a hot 6 months in my life of wrestling, you know.
Yeah.
And that was 91, yeah, 91, 92, because 91, 92, and then it all came to a halt when he pounded me at the All-Star match in Carver again.
Yeah. Well, that's got to be a tough place to wrestle, man. I wanted to ask you, does it ever bother you that you didn't? I mean, it doesn't pay to lament too much about this kind of stuff, but do you ever think about the fact that you would have made a shitload of money if you were wrestling today?
Oh, I mean, we joke about it, but you know, the market wasn't there. I'm happy for the people now that are getting you know, that kind of reward for, you know, for all their work right up through high school. But I don't have nothing sore about it. It's just
Yeah.
it's hard for me to believe that it even exists. But if you follow
Yeah.
sports, eventually something was going to crack, because college sports is kind of so popular that you know, the old model might not even work anymore. You know, just like where you're a scholarship. I don't want to say slave, but you're a scholarship person, and that's all you're going to get. Um, no, you know, yeah, it would be nice. Maybe I can add that in the lawsuit with getting my 2 wins off. I posted on Facebook a few months ago. I'm like, can I enter the portal? You know, I never got 93 never got season 1993. I I could go at like 197 for like some D1 school.
When's the last time you wrestled?
I went
You
into
still
one tournament after the 2000 Olympic trials. That was going to be my last tournament, and then I coached at Cleveland State, and I went to one preseason tournament somewhere in Ohio, and wrestled 165, and that was the last time I ever wrestled.
what year was that?
That would be like fall of 2000.
Okay. How'd you do?
I took first.
Nice.
I think I had 3 or 4 matches. I believe I wrestled Mitch Clark's brother in the finals, his younger brother.
Okay.
Clark from Ohio State, the guy that tech the scrambled legs wrestling camp,
Yeah.
because he was real good on top with the legs.
Do
So
you do you do you still wrestle around ever now?
no, I
No.
could mess around with somebody my size, but I coach little kids, and I'm mostly on the mat with little kids, and they're too small for me to even get on my knees and
Yeah.
wrestle with, because like my knees are really bad and I can barely bend them, and I'll fall, like I'll fall at a bad angle, and like I don't want to break anybody's arm, but once in a while I'll get on one knee and go a little bit with like, if they're over 100 pounds, I don't even want to do it. But
Okay.
no, pretty much completely off the mat. I had a bad neck injury uh, in 2003, where I've got plates in my neck, and then the hips and knees are not doing too well, and I'm always scared about just getting tweaked and having all this happen
Yeah.
again. That was a
Dude,
snowboarding accident. And
you wrestled so many good dudes. Like I was watching some of your stuff, and I can't forget to ask you about your senior year when you won it. Um, but you wrestled so many good dudes. Like on your YouTube channel, there was the match with Pat Smith, and it doesn't show the ending. Did you win that?
yeah, I
Okay.
won that 6-2, I think. Yeah, Pat. That was at 49 and a half
Yeah.
at 1993 U.S. Open, and he cut down and got real disciplined to go down from 63. So he was making a real run at it, uh, and and I had wrestled 50 the whole season in 93. I had an undefeated season at 150, and then when it came time to make 36 and a half, it was that tournament was literally the only time in my life I didn't make weight.
Okay.
John, I was 8. I came to the arena. I thought I was going to be about 5 over and just like get it off in the Vegas heat. And I got on the scale. I was 8.5 over. And John's like, put your stuff on and you know, start running. And I was like 8.5 pounds. I'm going to die. And I ran away. I ran away and got a cab, and then went and got food with my parents. And then after I ate a huge meal, I weighed like a quarter of a pound more than I did. I weighed in at like 44 and a half, and it was like I was 44 like when I was supposed to be cutting weight, and I was like just grubbing on stuff. Anyway, first time I didn't make weight. I just quit, and then Pat got sucked down, so we had to wrestle each other, and I won, but you know,
Was John pissed off at you?
for winning.
No,
No,
for not trying to cut down.
I don't know. He never said much about it. It just was what it was, and probably wasn't happy. I mean, I just thought I was gonna die if I cut 8.5 pounds out in the sun. I just thought I was gonna literally die. I
Yeah,
was wrestling 50. I was up to like 61 or 2, and then I was trying to go down to 36. And I see Kendall cut that much weight. I see like Kenny Bundy cut that much weight, and then I'm like, I can do it. And then I've done it. I did it the next year, but I hadn't wrestled 50 all year. I wrestled 42. So my weight was better.
yeah,
But I was not an amazing weight cutter. I, some people in wrestling will blow your mind on how much they will cut. And even more so in like MMA, I have had my mind blown about people cutting this certain amounts of weight. Like, man, when I was in California, Luke Rockhold was one of the fighters managed by the guy I worked for, and he weighed 211 pounds at a workout and was 170 pounds when he fought.
wow,
Some people got the science down, and they get in the sauna, and next thing you know, they're 8 pounds lighter. When somebody like me does the same thing, and I lose 4.25.
yeah. It's so weird, man. I mean, even now, without getting into all of it, but for you to go eat that big breakfast with your parents and then come back and you weigh a quarter pound more,
Yeah.
the human body is just so weird.
Uh,
Same question for the Kolat match. Did you win that one at
I
the U.S.
wrestled
Open?
Kolat. I wrestled Kolat twice. That was the next year. That was 2 years after I wrestled Pat. That was '95. The year I lost to Brands in the finals, and I beat Kolat that match, and then I had a bad. I made weight, but I had a bad weight cut at the World Team Trials, and he smoked me. He teched me. I don't even know what I placed at the World Team Trials, but I was in the middle of cutting weight, and I saw my plastics had ripped, and I wasn't losing anything, And I had the 15 minutes they got last 15 minutes trying to get like another 3/4 of a pound off, and just a hellacious weight cut. And that was for 36 in '95. Yep, at the World Team Trials, and so I was barely even in the running. So people thought I would maybe make it to the final match with Brands, you know, and I didn't. Kolat, Kolat smoked me right away. I think I lost another match too.
But you beat him once, right, Kolat?
Yeah, at the quarterfinals in earlier that year, '95 quarterfinals. Me and Kolat, I beat him like 5-4 something, and then I wrestled Fisher in the semifinals, and then Brands in the finals. Lost like 6-4. That's the best I ever did at the U.S. Open was a second place, which might be a first place in today's environment because the number one guy wrestled in the U.S. Open too. Now somehow sometimes they do, sometimes they don't now. Like, wasn't Jack Forrest the number one guy last summer? Why did he wrestle in the U.S. Open?
I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe
It's a good
maybe
question.
it's a medal. If you get a bronze or higher, maybe you get to sit out. But it used to be, you go in there and go make the sausage of the world team. Go in there, go in the blender with everybody else, even if you're the number one guy. And then, if you're number one at the U.S. Open, you get to stay out of the mini tournament and people, work their way up to you. That's
Yeah.
the
I
benefit.
think that's why he didn't wrestle, or he did wrestle in the U.S. Open, because then if he would have won, he could have sat till Final X, because he didn't medal at Worlds last year. He was the guy, but he didn't medal. So I think
Right.
that's why.
That's got to be something like that, because some were
Yeah.
there and
So your senior year, you won like, I don't know, 60 something matches in a row with your junior year that you didn't get to wrestle in the postseason, and then you went undefeated your senior year, and you majored your way through a very tough bracket. Um, and then you beat Jerry Abbas in the finals 15-6. I watched that match last night. Going into that match, like, what was your mentality? Was there any way you were going to lose that match?
well, sure, I could have. I mean, Jerry was like unbelievably fast. I just saw him this weekend in Utah. You know, uh, said hi and everything. We're like, we've always been good kind of friends and wrestling, opponents. And he's a great guy. But yes, I definitely could have lost that match. I mean, I almost intentionally like put extra pressure on myself by losing in the finals twice, and then just sloughing off an entire season of postseason. Put me in a high pressure situation, to where if I didn't win my senior year, that'd be quite the ammo to make fun of me online for the rest of history. And but I put myself in that situation kind of on purpose, because I was like feeling like I was like the kid who, if I made it to the finals, I went to like another level. All the time it was like, get through that semifinal, and you're at the end of the road. Just you can see that sprint, that 1,000-yard sprint you have after like a 5-mile run or whatever. And I just loved the finals, and I would get super psyched up for it, and just like wrestle above my level. And then I didn't do it with Brands a couple times. Then '93 got, somehow just evaporated with all the NCAA stuff and all the investigations and all that mess. And so I was like, I'm just going to put myself in a real high pressure situation to prove to myself that I still got it. And so I went into the match with that kind of thing in my head, and or the whole tournament, not just the match. I mean, that was just the last match of 5, and it was Abbas did a great job. He almost had a lead on me in the first period. After he hit, he's like kind of the inventor. I would say the inventor of the leg pass. When they go under and spread the legs, and he got me on that. And even John Smith, I'd have wrestled him before, but John's sisters, they were like, you just try to get on him and finish real fast. You don't let him do with all that rolling around. That's where he's comfortable. You make sure you stay out of that.
This is John Smith's sister saying this?
Sisters, yeah, like 2 of them. They kind of talk. They're not twins and everything, but they have twin like personalities. They like say things at the same time.
Okay.
And they gave me the advice. And as I was going ass high, head low, Abbas was like, as I was doing that, he's coming out the back door. I was like, I could hear John's sisters telling me, get out of this position. And then, but that hard stand up, that not goofing around on bottom and just trying to find angles. That hard stand up paid off right there, because I stood up. He dropped down on my leg, and I hit a crotch lift, and I had him like, he was still like riding me, but he was on his back, and they gave me the reversal for 2, and that really filled my sails to go into end the second period 4-3 instead of 3-2. And then I got choice, took bottom, you know, then I'm up, then one more takedown, and it's looking pretty good with a 4-point lead. One of the regrets I have, to be honest with you, was not taking bottom against Brands in the freshman year. I was up 2-1, and I let him pick bottom. I deferred, and only after the match did a couple coaches tell me how stupid I was. It's like you could have been up by 3-1. You're still a little bit fresh. But I was already exhausted. But if I, up 2-1, pick bottom, 3-1, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're one take that. You're one good burst of energy from 5-1, and that looks pretty good in the second period, even against Brands.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let him hit me with 9 takedowns in a row. It's going to be like I'm going to fight him off. So that was a bad strategy move for me, but so I got the chance to right that wrong a little bit. Got the choice, pick bottom, and got the 4-point lead.
So did you feel pretty damn good after getting that monkey off your back? Because I mean, if you had lost, you would be the best wrestler that never won a title. Because I
Well,
mean, everyone I've talked to, and I've talked to a lot, your name always comes up as being just one of the toughest freaking guys. Um, I talked to Jerry Abbas one time, and he told me that you were the toughest guy he ever wrestled. Um,
he
so
told you
that
that.
I'm pretty sure that's what he said. Yeah.
I think some people don't want to. I think some people like that have wrestled Brands. They don't want to give it to him.
I don't know if Jerry Abbas wrestled Brands.
He had to at some point.
Yeah,
Uh,
you're probably right.
but no, I was just kind of joking. But um, well, what happened when he did the leg pass and we got in the scramble where I wasn't supposed to be, as per John Smith's sister's advice,
Yeah.
I blew my knee out right
Oh,
there, before I had to take bottom. Before I got put on bottom, blew my knee out, meaning I tore the cartilage out the outside of my knee. It went, up. Oh my God, it went up, and I tried to just muscle through his like grip on my toe, and I blew my knee out. And I don't know if you could see it on the videos because they kind of gave you an edited video of that one too. But my knee was destroyed the rest of the match,
I didn't know that.
and so that was right at the end of the first period. I hit the stand up and got that reversal. And I'm like, this is the way to win. You just gotta not pay attention to how bad your knee hurts.
Yeah.
And I went through the match like nobody knows that it hurt that bad. But I was in for surgery 2 weeks after that. March
Wow.
30th. March 30th, I went in for surgery. The NCAA's was like 17th, 18th, 19th, or whatever. They couldn't do the surgery because the swelling had to go down. Went in for the surgery, and then I wrestled at the U.S. Open April 23rd.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
yeah,
How did you do?
I took third. I lost to Brands in the semis, and I can't remember any of the other matches. And Brands probably beat Fisher in the finals, right? And
Yeah.
I took third that year. I don't remember who I wrestled in the wrestlebacks, but it doesn't matter. But yeah, I took third, and you know,
So
it was.
not only were you super slick, but you were freaking tough, man. I
I had to
mean,
be. I was really getting the injuries were really piling up over the years steadily. Started
yeah.
early and got pretty bad after the yeah, got pretty bad by the mid '90s, and then like the last 4 years I wrestled, I was kind of hanging on, except for a few shining moments, but felt like I was kind of hanging on, and maybe a little too beat up. After the Olympic trials in '96, I was 24 years old. I had to have 2 back surgeries in a row because I ruptured a disc during the tournament, and that was like cutting off. Well, I don't want to say cutting off a leg because you can win with one leg, but that was just it was a incredibly painful, almost never recover from type of surgery.
Yeah.
But people do recover from that. But it was 2 in a row because I got the job at Northern Iowa, and I didn't want to just sit there. I got surgery in October, and I didn't want to sit there till February and not even coach. So I got on the mat in December and re-ruptured the disc, and then I was out basically until the U.S. Open in April, and just went to
Wow.
the U.S. Open. So there's, that's, you lose at the Olympic trials, and you're like, I'm gonna, just dedicate everything for the next 4 years, and it's gonna be my cycle, my quadrennium, and well, but first I got to get these two back surgeries and take 9 months off, and then I'll see you at the U.S. Open. So, the support beams were like wobbling at that point.
Yeah. So injuries really derailed your international career and life after college. Um, so you retired pretty young, right? Like 26 or something?
The 2000 Olympic trials was like in May or June, and I was 28, so I would have been
Okay.
I would just about turn 29. So I was 28 when I basically wrestled my last match, except for that one tournament. And so that's pretty young now. That's pretty
How,
young for now.
how did you do at those trials?
I think I took fifth overall. I made it to the semifinals of the mini tournament. Okay, so the semifinals isn't exactly the top four guys because the number one guy is sitting up top, who was Townsend Saunders
Yeah.
from Arizona State. So I believe I wrestled. Wait, it was McElravy, not Townsend Saunders. That was '96. McElravy, and no, it was. It must have been McElravy. I think I lost to Bono in the semis uh, of the Olympic trials, and then of the qualifier. Oh no, of the trials, and I think it was fifth overall. So that was my final. Fifth overall, fifth in the mini tournament, sixth overall, I think, because the number one guy who had to be McElravy in 2000, right? Because he
Yeah.
graduated in '7 and just made every world team.
So how freaking good was McElravy?
Oh, I mean, he had a little faster pace than Brands, and was Brands wasn't like moving that much, but McElravy, had a more like dynamic motion to him, and he was just like he had that Iowa shape, and there was just nothing phased him at all. I wrestled him one time at the Northern Plains Regional up in Wisconsin, I think, and I went up to 49 for that one. I think it was right after he lost to Marionetti. I think it was a couple weeks after he lost to Marionetti.
Okay.
And 95, right?
Okay. I think so.
Yeah, that would have been his sophomore year because he won one, or his junior year. He won two, then lost to Marinetti, then graduated in 95. Anyway, I wrestled him. I got up on him 5-0 and almost got a three-pointer on the edge. So I would have been up 8-0 and on top, but they called my foot out of bounds. So it was only 5-0. And then he rallied back, caught me in a cradle one time. It's like one of the two times in my life I got caught in a cradle. Caught me in a cradle and beat me 9-6. And so I did wrestle McRaver one time, and I got beat 9-6. But I felt the guy. He was
Well,
unbelievable. He was
well,
power.
you touched on an interesting point. Like back then, your foot went out of bounds, they called you out. And
Right.
nowadays, you would be scoring points like crazy on the edge. I mean, I was watching some of your matches, and they call you out. I can't remember who you're wrestling, and I was like, well, shit. Today, that would have been a takedown,
Oh yeah. If
easily.
if one toe just touched the out of bounds, it didn't even break through the white line or whatever color line, you were out of bounds back then. And when I started wrestling, when I was 10, uh, my first big win was against one of my own teammates. My first big win in my life, like somebody with a name and a little name for us little kids. But my first big win, I jumped out of bounds 15 times.
Huh.
We were, we were wrestling on one of those quarter mats, and I'm like, he's in on me. You
Yeah.
just out of bounds, and you're allowed to. That was my first year, like I'm talking 81-ish. And then I took him down once or twice and won 4-1. But I mean, I just ditched I'm like, I'll get him in the center, but if he's going to get me on the edge, and I'm just going to jump out of bounds. And that's what
Dude,
people.
sorry, go ahead.
No, and that's what the rules were. In fact, when I started wrestling, the outer circle,
Yeah.
the two referee lines and then the smaller outer circle, we would put our front foot with our back foot outside the small inner circle, and our front foot would be on the stripe. We'd be like 7 feet apart from each other. And I think the rules changed really quickly to where your back foot would be on the outer circle, the outer smaller circle, outer line of the smaller circle, and then your lead foot would be like, only like 4 feet from the other guy.
Yeah.
But we would shoot on the whistle. Like, I don't know, we're 8 feet away, but hey, whatever. It worked.
Yeah, I mean, thank God they didn't have the rules they have today, because I wouldn't have had near as much success, because I was really good at wrestling the boundary and just pushing them out whenever if they started to reverse me, I'd push them out. I mean, I knew every trick in the book. I wasn't a great wrestler, but I was good at winning matches, and I used all that shit to my advantage. I was like a prisoner. Wrestlers are like prisoners. They figure out the line, and they figure out how to figure it, they figure out how to shirk the rules as best you can within the rules.
Yeah, you would have probably been whatever the rules are. They're just like, you're a young kid growing up under those rules, whatever they are. If you're a good strategist and some of the loopholes, you'll find them.
Yeah, 100%. I won't take up a ton of your time, but I did want to get into the, Barbara Walters section of the podcast. I wanted to ask you about, like, I said it was called Wrestling with Issues, and you had some issues. Was it difficult, being at a high level, literally from 10 years old to 29, 28? And then when wrestling was over, was that a difficult transition in your life? Did you have some rough years there? How was that?
Well, I wasn't. I did. I was only, on the world scene from till it was like 18, not 10.
Right.
I was just another 10-year-old, but I was a good student of the sport, and I paid attention and worked as hard as I possibly could. And like the wrestling was separated from where I like was growing up, and getting in fights and getting in trouble. We were like a half hour away in the rural area with different people that were on the wrestling team, because it was a good wrestling team. It had a good reputation, and I got to be like a different, the perfect version of myself at wrestling practice, almost like a different kid than I was like with my buddies, hanging out in the suburbs of Cleveland and going to the mall, going to the strip mall and bowling alley and all that. And it's like, uh, oh man. So, so, that part of me, well, it kind of continued when I was in high school, because I went across town for high school too. So I didn't go to the high school I would have really went to. I went to St. Edward's, a Catholic high school, all boys, and it, that really changed my life. I mean, I got to be the version of myself in the wrestling room like 14 hours a day, from the time I went to school to the time I actually got home. Was it 13, 14 hours a day, instead of just like 3 times a week, for a couple hours, and then at tournaments. You know what I mean? So it really
Yeah.
dominated the discipline, and all the great things that wrestling brings really dominated my life at that time. And that's what made me, that's why you're, I guess, talking to me now, about my wrestling career is what you know, the environment I took advantage of, was lucky to be a part of, and jumped right into to have that version of Al be the one that presents to the world, instead of, you know, the person I was back with my buds, and, you know, all that. So, and then, you know, as it came to an end, yeah, I might have lost my marbles for a little while there as it was coming to an end. It really, you know, missed opportunity for a person that didn't miss a lot of opportunities. And then, you know, the day after, and you're like, oh my God, that really just didn't happen for you. It's a hell of a load.
Yeah.
It's a heck of a load. But like, after I had the back surgeries, and I stuck around for that whole 4 years, I went to law school, you know, and in 98, 99. That went till 2002, because I had to take a semester off for the Olympic trials, and had 4 years of law school, and, you know, got through it. And it was something else to focus on besides wrestling, especially after the wrestling, and, you know, knowing you only got a couple of years of law school left, and this will be the next thing I'm doing. And you know, that had a good effect on my brain and everything, to keep looking forward. And then passing the bar was a good thing, but I got back to making trouble, you know, with my
Yeah.
friend. You know, I was now I was living full time in Cleveland, and, you know, here we go. Before, it was like basically full time over at St. Ed's or Oklahoma State, or on the road somewhere coaching, and having a job there. And then, you know, it was tough mentally to not reach your goals. It was really tough, and it always will be. And just like Royce Alger says, hey man, you got a big match, you don't perform, all you have is the rest of your life to think about it.
Hey, I wanted to ask you. You brought up Royce Alger, and I almost forgot. You got into a fight with him and Bill Zadig. How did the fight with Royce Alger? How did that? Do you guys talk now?
Well, I ran into Royce. I went to Iowa to watch my friend's son wrestle in the Iowa State tournament. I drove all the way a couple of years ago. I drove all the way there. He did a great job. He placed fifth, and we were in the warm up room, and Alger had a great quote. And I hadn't seen him, like, literally since, like, we had a little scuffle in the wrestling room. That didn't last 5 seconds. You know, he made a joke after the U.S. Open that a lot of people thought I might win. Uh, I took fifth. It was like 98. He said, "Hey, Freed, there was a tournament this weekend down in Disney World. You know, you could have went." And that's where I was, losing. And I just said, you know, F. And then
Yeah.
there we are. I'm like, I'm not gonna back down, you know, and blah, 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 blah. Lasted 5 seconds, broke it up, you know. I had to leave the Iowa room then after that. So, but that was that. And but anyway, I hadn't seen him in a long time. There's really no hard feelings. But he comes up to me. He stands over the chair and he recognizes who I am, and he looks at me with the Royce, you know, look, and he goes, "I don't know if I'm going to deliver this. This is like the comedy now, you know. This is the moment." He goes, "You were part of the journey." And I looked at him like that. You couldn't have said it better, you know.
Yeah.
I was part of the journey, and I was like, that'll be good enough. So I think we're all right, you know. And me and Zadok have, shook hands many times, and it's like, it's I don't think it's a really big deal, but it was a stupid fight, and probably and definitely shouldn't have done it. And but that's how wrestlers are when they're cutting weight,
Yeah.
for a big tournament. So sparks can fly. But I do recognize Zadig as the most successful USA wrestling head coach in the history of our country, and I think that's great for him and everything. And they're like a
Yeah.
legend. Live in Montana here. They're a legendary family. Everybody knows them and respects them. And a fight in the wrestling room is not all that big of a deal.
Yeah. Montana is one of the few states that I have not been to.
I had my chair set up over here. Maybe I wanted to get this view, but it like went straight up in the sky. But I'm gonna go sit on this chair and hopefully get the mountains in the background for a second.
All right. So you mentioned that you have issues. Do you care to talk about any of them?
Can you see the mountains at all?
A little bit.
Yeah, like if I raise this up like this.
Yeah, now I can see them.
So that's the farm where this is the farm where our wrestling room is, and all the people live here, the family. I've been
Awesome.
here about 5 years. I gotta put these on now. Well, the issues, like, let's just say, like, my the shrink that my parents used to talk to, excuse me, that probably put them on psych meds when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
All right, now this is personal stuff, but it's it's worth talking about because it is a thing. It is a thing, and I love my parents, and I'm totally grateful to them. They're both passed away, but there was a time when I was a kid when my dad was military and not out of the military very long. My brother was born on a military base, and I was born on the other side of the country. And I don't know if the military had anything to do with it, but at some point they put my dad on a lot of psych meds that are very popular now for ruining lives.
Yeah.
And they didn't help our family life. When that happened when I was 8 years old. They didn't help our family life. And for many, many years uh, after that, they, my parents would keep telling me, you need to go see the shrink and get on these psych meds. And I was like, I will never, ever touch any of that crap. And I don't care what I do or say. And so they wanted to do that kind of stuff because I was like, being a rabble rouser around the neighborhood sometimes. And, that the issue is growing up in a house where one or two of the leaders of the household are are getting fed psych meds of all different kinds, and it changes your family life. It really it starts sucking the air out of like the health of the family life.
Yeah.
So that I don't know how deep you can go into that, but that was something that wrestling like helped me solve. So that started when I was 8. Then I was 10. I started wrestling, and I had kind of a vehicle to get attention because
Yeah.
what those meds do is they detach a person. You sacrifice, you get detached, but at least you're not acting out.
Yeah.
And so I probably was starved for some attention, and wrestling came around, and I just jumped into it because I loved it. I loved the sport and everything, but as I got better and won some things, I I was like, oh, if I have a wrestling tournament every weekend, then I will be able to see my family. they won't they won't send me to camp again for 8 weeks in the summer.
Yeah.
Go to these tournaments, and then I'll have to drag my parents along, and we can have like family time. And that was like, I think, my subconscious uh, driving my actions to I guess help and also have some fun with my family and my parents, because they just kept sending me to camp every year from like third grade. I was like, whole year of school, and then 10 weeks off, and 8 weeks of it I'm at day camp till 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You know,
Yeah.
so I didn't, and then the latchkey kid stuff, and I was just like, you guys can do better. You can pay a little more attention. I'll start winning wrestling tournaments, and you're gonna have to drive me.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
I understand that 100%, man. I mean, my home life was very chaotic, and if it wasn't for wrestling, I tell people all the time, I don't know where I would be, but it wouldn't be good, you know.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
Same here. If it was if I would have got into music as young as I wanted to, like that was before wrestling. I wanted to play guitar from the time I was 8. If I would have gotten into it right then and never had wrestling, music in the suburbs, Cleveland, I would have just went woo. I would have
Yeah.
went rocker, and and not ever had a chance to. I would have never had a chance to like get into this world where they develop you as a future role model, and you know you I actually like feel like I became that at some points, and I like coaching kids to be that way as well. I mean, the wrestler life is a great life, a healthy life. The wrestler life, the discipline, and just the attitudes, the way to think. You're not going to get exposed to that or get a lot of real life lessons in that outside of the sport of wrestling. You'll get a lot of real life lessons of what those lessons mean. What those lessons mean, those words that are defined on the walls at St. Anne's, and those quotes that are everywhere, and be surrounded by 50 state championship brackets. That's your reminder that you can do it. And you have to live that life. You can't fake it, not for too long. And so I dove into that, and I probably would have dove the other way if I had never been been fortunate enough to get involved with this sport that is so challenging that there's no cutting corners.
Yeah, and that's why I believe that God has a plan for all of us, because you came from a family that nobody wrestled. You just kind of, I'm not sure how you actually got into it, but it was almost kind of like, I don't know, fate, right? Wasn't it a coach that told you should get into wrestling from some other sport?
I was in the softball league, and one of the coaches from another team who had never talked to my parents, what I guess he was watching me play, and he was watching me yell at my teammates when they would do bad. And this was softball. You realize we weren't even like allowed to play hardball.
Yeah.
So this is like softball league, slow pitch, arc pitch and everything for boys and everything. And he saw me dive at a couple of balls playing third base. I bought myself an elbow pad so I could dive and not get scared. And he probably saw me yelling at my teammates, and he went up to my mom and dad. He went up to my mom and dad and said, your boy is really got a lot of energy. He's really aggressive, and I think he might be good at wrestling. And I was, of course, 9. That was the summer. I would turn 10. And then right when I turned 10, he took us to like a little clinic, and then a pre-practice for the club. And then I was off to the races. Like the moment I went to the wrestling clinic, I thought it was pro wrestling. I thought, when do I get to wear a mask? What do I do on the turnbuckle? I
Yeah.
really truly thought that. I was the kid wearing the jeans at the wrestling clinic because I had impetigo in the back of my knee, so I wore jeans. But the clinician taught us, I paid attention. He taught us a straight up, stand up, quarter turn, grab the wrist, push it down. And I used that stand up until my last match in college. That was exactly, I was like, you just teach me a move. If it works at all, I'm going to do it as hard as I can. And I never really did a different stand up from that.
Huh.
Almost every time, you know. And uh, I was off. I was kind of off to the races. Like once I got my fingers into that sport, I was like, oh, this is it. This is something. This
And
is something.
you were a rock star, man. I mean, you're a good looking kid. You had those like intimidating dark eyes, and at one point you had that long hair. You just looked like a freaking stud, man. And yeah, I could see why people were probably scared shitless of you. Like you may not have realized it, but I bet they were, dude.
I don't know. I look at the crazy hair, and it was a at the time I kind of wish I didn't do it. I kind of wished I would button it up like I did in '95. I had like kind of short hair, one of those '90s styles, like and then '93 was like crazy long, like a tennis player. But like my best friend had long hair, so we were like hang out with long hair. So I don't know, but I'm glad people liked it.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's what made you you. I mean, not only were you a badass wrestler, but you had that look, and you're. I don't know, man. I thought wrestlers were just the coolest when I was growing up, and I wanted to be like certain people,
I did.
and
Once I got exposed to them, I knew they were the coolest. And over the years, my phone's only on 10% or 20% now, but we'll get, you know, but over the year, you know what? Over the years, like being around some of the guys who are world famous now, like Mark Kerr, like Randy Couture, like Coleman, Randleman, obviously a lot of them through MMA. It was like a confirmation that I really thought when I was hanging out with those people that there was nothing like these people in the world, and the world hadn't discovered that kind of person yet. And then and it's really rewarding or fulfilling or just fun to have watched the whole rotation for the rest of the world to figure out like the people in our sport really were like the alpha male top shelf warriors on the earth.
yeah,
And we all kind of knew it when we were like hanging out with them. The UFC like only had one weight class or whatever, one weight class at the beginning, but my gravitation towards that crowd, you know, it was from inside, and to be like one of them or be a leader of one of them. But then when that started happening in the real world, I was like, you're just appreciating what I've been appreciating this whole time. And then the
yeah,
respect we have for our, not always the biggest guys, but there's Cejudo, there's John Smith, there's Gable, all these people are becoming known to the whole world, and they really are special, and they really are positive influences in anybody's lives at any distance.
yeah. Yeah, and there's part of me that, of course, I would like wrestling to be huge and everyone to know how cool it is. But I also have kind of theory that I don't know if it's ever going to be a huge thing. People talk about growing the sport, and yeah, that would be cool. But wrestling is so hard, and most people don't have that in them to do something that hard. And unless you did it or you knew somebody who did, it's hard to understand a lot of times. And I don't know. I think it's cool that I've been to the U.S. Open and I know what you're talking about. I mean, I was standing there and there's just Jimmy Zaleski and there's Tom Brands and there's Cary Kolat, and it was just like so freaking cool. I don't ever want it to be so big that I can't go do that and just be up there standing next to those guys.
I,
Um,
I don't. I agree with you. I'm really happy with where it is now.
yeah,
Tons of respect and a decent enough amount of attention to where you do not have to be the greatest wrestler that ever lived on the planet to make a living in it.
yeah,
You just have to be in that league, in that stripe, you know. And then obviously if you're a decent businessman, you don't even have to be in that stripe. You just have to be a good organizer, a good club runner or whatever. But there but with my family, there were some people in my family that were telling me when I was like 24, 25, 26, like constantly saying like, what are you going to do when this is over? A head coach, even in the college, doesn't make any, and really like taking a dump on my dreams and not giving me like the benefit of the doubt that at least I'm onto something that might grow this big later on
Right.
in their lives. And now there's enough media attention for 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 for, for people who aren't at the very top of the game, uh, to get their voice out there, or whatever they want to sell a product, like, you want to blog about it all the time. People are going to pay some attention. It's decent, it's good internet content with all the garbage that's out there. To watch a Bo Bassett train at 4:55 a.m. every morning, or a Caden Henschel vlog his way through the D2 Nationals. It's like, it's authentic content. It's good influences for the kids. And there's not a lot of that on the internet, especially if you're just social media. And there's enough media attention and money in the sport. There's RAF. That's a league, the pro league, that has some great matches. And
Yeah.
the guy that started that league is from where I grew up. I lived in University Heights. We moved to Beechwood, and he's a Beechwood kid in Cleveland, Ohio, from Beechwood, Ohio. And I talked to him a little bit, or on text, about RAF, and I was like telling him, let's get some novelty matches. Let's get Khamzat Chimaevs versus Sean Strickland, or Bo Nickel, or stuff like that. And I think wrestling might never, hopefully, will never be as big as what you were saying, because I don't want it to be that way either. But it can be a good, comfortable place that makes good, decent livings for just doing the sport, not having to be a genius in 10 other areas of life. And as like a beef settler, I think it's better than boxing, because wrestling matches are good old fun for everybody, and almost no one gets hurt ever.
Yeah, and just the self-defense it teaches you, like, I mean, I was just a state champion. I had a very average college career, and I didn't, but I feel like I could still defend myself against just about, the average person, and they have no idea. I'm 5'7", if in good shoes, and not a very big guy, but I'm still confident against, that I could handle myself against just about anybody. My little boy asked me, "Could you whoop that guy, Daddy?" Some big dude, and I was like, "Yeah, I could." I'd
Well,
get him tired, and once you get a guy tired, it doesn't matter how big they are; it's over.
I mean, you could have an RAF match versus that wrestler that's a comedian.
Greg Warren, he probably whooped my ass.
Oh, what do you?
He was an All-American. He got seventh in Division One and back in '91, I think, at 150. So yeah, he was legit.
No, but I joke about that, but honestly, if you make a name for yourself there, then maybe somebody will want to wrestle. Maybe you wrestle Caden Henschel or something like that.
Well, I would love to see them put old timers matches in RAF. Like, who wouldn't want to see Cary Kolat and Tom Brands? They're still about the same size. I would love to see that match.
100%. Or the novelty of just some internet beefs. I'm telling you, wrestling is just like at a party. You can just sit around. You guys are drinking your beers, and a couple guys are wrestling right there in the lawn, or
Yeah.
and it's good fun. It's not, we're not 99.9% of the time. Nobody gets hurt at all. It's just it needs to, like, it has its place in the larger society, and I think it's finding its place. And like you said, I don't want it to be like, to be that. I don't think it is made to be like the big giant spectacles of sport. I don't think it's made to be like that, but it could carve out its perfect spot. It's doing it now, and it's fun to watch, especially growing up where it was pretty oddball thing to be doing. Where I grew up, when I started, it was, there was like a little bit of ridicule, a little bit of it's not that tough. It's, all that stuff. I think,
Yeah.
you know that post that I just put a post up on Facebook earlier today talking about that, where wrestling wrestled its way out of ridicule on the stage of MMA, and gained respect over like the past 20, 25 years that that it always deserved, but really got a bad shake in this country. And you know, and almost got kicked out of the Olympics, right? Our back was against the wall just like 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, that was crazy, man. And now that they only have 6 weights, it's just a damn shame too. There's so many people who don't have a weight class. They got to fix that. They got to get us back to 10 weight classes. That's ridiculous.
I know that that would be a great thing. Uh, that would yeah, that's I don't get the 6 weight classes, but it is what it is. It makes an Olympic gold medal even more
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Well, and man, you really are one of the best to ever do it. And everything that happened in your life, good and bad, led you to where you are. And I'm sure you're touching lives all over the place. And if anything, this is what I tell myself all the time: if anything had gone different in my life, um, anything, literally, my little boy might not be here, who I wouldn't trade for anything, even though sometimes I want to give him away. Because he's a handful, but I love him so much. And if anything had been different, I probably wouldn't have him. Even if I had a kid, it wouldn't be him. And whatever he does in his life, it's the butterfly effect of everything. So I don't know what kind of issues you have, but I think you're exactly where God wants you to be.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And the same goes to you. Same
Yeah.
goes to
Well,
that.
thanks, man.
What a great time I've had talking to you. Thank you
Yeah.
for here.
Well, I
I
would love to talk to you more often.
or I'm just a shadow right now. I don't know. I hopefully you can see something.
I can still see you. Yeah, it's a beautiful backdrop. I would love to come to Montana. I've heard great things about it.
It's great. I mean, how much noise have you heard while I've been sitting here? Besides
Yeah,
just
not
it's people. The people are so based, you know, and
well. Another thing I wanted to say before I let you get off here is that you know when I watched you wrestle, you did look like such an intimidating presence, and I would read about you in like USA Wrestler back in the day before wrestling. Before anybody knew anything about anything, you'd have to wait a month to find out how someone did at some big tournament.
right.
And so like you were intimidating from afar, and it's always cool for me to talk to these badass wrestlers who are just good dudes on top of that. And you certainly seem to be that. So I appreciate it, man. I appreciate how humble you are and approachable, and I was nervous before the podcast, but I immediately it went away.
Me too. I
Good.
was well, and it went away really quickly. I appreciate it. Appreciate the time and yeah, and if you're gonna do more, maybe we can do it again with other people or whatever you want. I'm available. I had a great time.
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much. God bless you, Alan. And I'll let you know as soon as this is up and you can share it and all that stuff.
Okay, thank you.
All right, man. God bless you. Take care. Bye bye. All right, everybody. Alan Freed, one of the best to ever do it, arguably the best high school wrestler ever, and NCAA champion and world champion, and just a good dude. And kids that he's coaching are lucky to have him. And I really appreciate you guys tuning into this. It was great to have him be the first guy back in a while after a long hiatus. And I'm not sure why I stopped doing them, but I'm glad we're doing them again. So God bless all of you. Thanks for tuning in and take care. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.